It's a beautiful day on Scorra. The planet is known for its placid conditions, making it a popular tourist destination and refueling depot in the outer trade routes, especially for those few thrill-seekers that want to get close to the edge and gaze into the great stonking aberration of death and destruction known as cruel space. All in all, Scorra is a wonderful world and home to the TRC 3100 R01, or the Great Plain Nagasha as they like to call themselves. Lucky bitches to the rest of the galaxy. A very reasonable people, even if their teens and young adults tended to go heavy with massive tail piercings and huge tattoos along their scales. But hey, rebelling teens are almost up there with death and taxes for how ubiquitous they are. Officer Theresa Trit felt a rueful smile cross her face at the thought of that. Her daughter in teenage rebellion, bad enough when Theresa herself had gotten armor piercings or even little hollow projectors bolted to her leather plates, but if Mika follows the local patterns and gets one of those enormous tattoos, she'll have a beast of a time getting rid of it. Unlike the locals, their species doesn't shed their skin every few years. Being a Platin, or the BMO 148, had its ups and downs. Mostly ups, as few among the BMO classifications had natural armor plating along their body, so any sort of job in military, law enforcement, or security gave them a shoe-in. Even former punks like Theresa. Still, it would be nice to... Her train of thought slams to a halt as within grabbing distance a male walks by. A BMO 1103 by the looks of his almost metallic hair tone and easy gait. He notices her staring and gives her a smile that sets her heart aflutter. She regains herself, reminding herself she can't just join a random tribe and marry in. She has a daughter to look after. She had paid for the insemination and everything and loved her little Mika more than herself. Even if jumping on him now would mean that she would be the first in 3 generations to actually touch a male, let alone get laid by one. With a monumental effort, she stops herself from following him and simply adjusts her uniform to busy her hand. She's on patrol. She's looking for troublemakers and reminding would-be criminals that there are laws and consequences for breaking them. She doesn't have time to chase down the first man she'd seen in person in over a year. She takes a deep breath and lets it out, centered and calm. Then the heat. The horrible, wonderful heat. Is he... She turns to regard him with her eyes wide. His gait has him easily halfway down the block and is being stared at by every woman he passes by, and several of the locals are outright following him at this point, the sparking scrape of their piercings and chains sending shivers down her spine. He's being followed by one of the local gangs. They're normally too cowardly to try anything but pointless posturing, but if there's a prize like that... Oh yes, that's definitely her business. She mentally notes to ask whoever he's bonded with what the hell they're thinking wasting his time in season like this, but first things first, get the poor fool out of harm's way. This is probably the first time in his life he's not been surrounded by his wives or mothers every second of the day, and she'll be damned if she lets a male lose his innocence on her watch. You! The man screams out all of a sudden and breaks into a dead sprint. Was he trying to get away from some kind of slaver? Is there a threat in the audience, is there? He shoulder tackles another man, this one bald, who had been coming from the other direction, and the roll to the ground together. Maybe an over-enthusiastic... The other man ends up on top of the first one and starts raining blows down on him with brutal, meaty thunks. "Sweet goddess!" Someone shouts in shock as the 2 men become a blur of wrath. The copper top launches the other off him before kipping up and dodging his opponent's charge and punching him in the side as he passes. "Control, this is Officer Trit. We've got a brawl on 82nd and Winder. Males are involved," she says, activating the communicator on her lapel. "Copy that, officer. You're clear to engage. Keep them safe. We're sending a car and ambulance." "Control, both combatants are male. Please advise," Trit says, into her comm, and there's a pause. "I'm bringing up your badge camera, please. Holy shit! They're trying to kill each other!" Control exclaims as the bald one drop kicks the copper top into a ground vehicle so hard that the side dents. Not that he really notices as he seems to bounce off the bone-jarring impact into a charging left hook so hard it sends the bald one staggering backwards before he springs forward and into a headbutt that smashes into Copper's face. Both combatants stagger back with Copper holding his bleeding nose. There's a grunt of pain as he rights it before snorting out mucus and blood that he flicks to the ground, even as the bald one spits up a bloody loogie. They exchange words in an unknown language before starting to pace around each other, each of them seeking an opening to start attacking again, but the initial flurry is over. "All right, you two, good goddess," Officer Trit starts to say to the pacing men, but that just signals them to attack each other again. The bald one gets in a quick series of 5 punches before he's grabbed by the shoulders and driven into a brutal knee by the other, a shove, and they separate each, trying to both pummel their opponent and deflect the other's attacks. A stomp from the copper one opens up the bald one to stagger back and take a few glancing blows. Someone brushes by Trit and she does a double take when a third man, this one very slight with vaguely slanted eyes and a mop of short black hair shaved bald at the sides, runs along the top of several Nagasha tails, rushes past her and knocks down both fighting men before grabs something from their belts. He shouts something in an unknown language, and the other two roar back in a fury. The new third man leaps onto the tails of a few Nagasha to bounce off and race through the choking crowd with the other two in hot pursuit. "Control! The fight's moving towards the starport! A third has joined in! Is this some kind of insane publicity stunt?" Control demands. "We've got nearly half the force rushing in after we confirmed the local newshounds got wind of this. We need to be seen trying to corral this madness, or they'll be roasting us over a bonfire, and oh, damn it, now Thorin Insurance is reporting carjackers." "Don't they have their own security?" Theresa asks. "They do, so they can spin on it. We've got reports of a second brawl some way away from yours, all male as well." "Is the entire force out?" "Yes, this is insane. We have report of a 4-man fight breaking out near your position. This is... We're calling in the guard for reinforcement. We have no proper training or channels to deal with this. They have null particle launchers. They'll put these berserk men down without hurting them." "Null particle? That will drop everyone in the crowd if it doesn't shut down half the city. And how else are we going to get them to stop? Stun bolts and containment spray will just paralyze one and let the other two straight up murder them. We need all of them down at once, or the other one standing may take advantage of it. We don't know what set these men off, but whatever curse or drug they're under will be flattened by the null." Control argues back, and Officer Trit has nothing to say even as she gives chase and... "Oh, dear goddess, no!" she moans as the leading man slams into a large, dark-skinned one walking around a corner who instantly goes so berserk, picks him up with one hand, and throws him into the other two that catch him and throw him back before tackling into him. All 4 men hit the ground in a bundle of furious blows, foreign invectives, and pure mindless rage. To everyone's shock, the bald one, who now has his shirt in tatters, lifts up all 3 of them with a deep roar before slamming the group as a whole into the pavement, then jumping into the mass elbow first. He's caught by the feet of the newest and largest one and launched upwards. He corrects and lands well, the wind blowing up his shirt and showing a patch along his spine with a blinking red light on it. It all falls into place. Someone here is getting some kind of sick thrill out of this and recording, which the entire crowd, including her, are doing. Damn. Control, did you catch that? Frenzy patches. I'm calling it in. We need the guard 10 minutes ago. Control answers just before the newest, biggest one roars into the face of the smallest one as he holds the man by the shirt and starts running with him down the street, knocking aside a pair of officers like they weren't even there. "Get back here!" the copper one screams in fury as he and the bald one give pursuit. The 2 of them shove against each other and take quick swipes at one another as the insane fight continues down several blocks before the biggest one is tackled by a smaller form. There's a tumble before the big man is temporarily pinned under a dour-skinned man who throws numerous blows on him for a few moments before the pursuing 2 tackle him off, even as the dark-haired one tackles into the mess. Then the big one is up again as he grabs the dour-skinned addition and uses the poor men as a club against the other 3. He only swings him twice before the copper-haired one gets behind him and tackles him at the knees even as the dark-haired one jumps up and delivers a double drop kick to the chest. The massive figure of a guard troop transport soars overhead and slams into the street beyond them before unfolding to reveal the null wave cannon. A non-lethal, but exceedingly dangerous weapon which makes use of the same strange effects prevalent in cruel space to shut down people and technology both. The short burst guarantees that no long-term harm is caused while it also wipes out any form of axiom-based drug or curses. A frenzy patch counts as both. She tunes herself into the network even as another transport soars overhead and lands near the other brawl. Today will be one to tell her daughter and any granddaughters coming up. All troopers brace yourself. Null wave particles are active and about to be unleashed. Everyone brace yourselves. Null! Officer Trit calls out just as the massive gun powers up and the light drinking energy flashes out. Everyone hits the ground before they're forcibly dropped, and Officer Trit is no exception. She's fine before the wave hits her, then utterly exhausted and feeling like she's been thrown down a flight of stairs. With a grunt, she opens her eyes. The men! They're still standing! But they're not fighting. They glance around and then run off. Good, the patches were broken. Hopefully they're all just heading home. But how did they personally resist the Null? How? The fuzziness of Null chases her into unconsciousness, and her memories of the fight fade ever so. Several blocks away. Holy shit, they really did shut down the whole city with that, Jake says with a whistle. Also, you punks are assholes, teaming up like that in a free-for-all. All's fair in love and war, big man. Now where the fuck's our ride? We've got minutes tops before people peel themselves off the pavement, and we have to start answering questions. Beck remarks, before looking oddly at Franklin. Hold still, he says before grabbing the ginger's nose and righting it properly. Franklin grunts in pain but calms down as his breathing clears and nods thankfully. A shadow passes over them. A third piece of the military? No, a fancy-looking air car that lowers to their level, and in the driver's seat is Mercy. How much for how long, boys? She asks, with a wink as all five pile in. Holy crap, you guys fine with that? Yeah, getting the hell out of Dodge is more important than comfort. Punch it, Batgirl. Lou orders as he and Beck share the front passenger seat as the two smallest guys, so the other three actually have room in the back. Franklin, Marcus, and Jake would all be squashed shoulder to shoulder with Jake in the middle if he wasn't leaning forward to watch out the front and both get his own and give a fair amount of breathing room. You heard the man, let's get moving, Marcus remarks, and Mercy slams her foot down on the accelerator. It takes only a few minutes to soar to the Claw and right into the main cargo bay where dozens of different air cars are already parked. Hey boys, hell of a show you gave us! The pirates call as they clamber out of the car, and Mercy soars off and almost flies into the oncoming air car that has Ryu in it. She nearly pries the door open and grabs him out of his seat to all but shove her tongue down his throat. Numerous vehicles soar in and cackling pirates hop out. After the cargo deck is nearly filled, the bulkhead doors close and the ship lurches hard before the inertial dampeners fully activate. Ladies and gentlemen, that went off perfectly. We now have 63 luxury air cars, 400,000 in loose credit discs, 200 assorted plasma and laser weapons, nearly 3 tons of explosives, entire petabytes worth of blackmail for local government officials, 100 pounds of stolen jewelry, a literal ton of designer clothing, and one severely pissed-off hostage that used to be our employer. If this is any kind of example for what the humans want us to do, then we're riding on the easy lanes. Extra booze tonight, ladies! Woo! Agenda cheers through the speakers, and an answering cheer rises up from the entire crew, the men somewhat less hardy as their own beer and vodka distilling stills haven't been perfected yet. Something wrong? Mabby asks Franklin, who sort of shrugs. Little loud, and while I'm not much of a drinker, I agree with guys. The booze here is bad. We need to get those stills pumping harder. Our own microbrewery? Sounds wonderful. Mabby purrs. Hey, kitty cat, what's Axiom Energy? I've been hearing about it all over the place, and apparently most everything runs on it, including you girls. But what is it? Franklin asks her, and she shrugs. It's life itself, lover boy. It binds us and connects us and holds the universe together. Mabby replies as she wraps her tail around his leg. He raises an eyebrow. Yes, explaining that a tail around the leg meant she wanted it was a little embarrassing, but he didn't need to be told twice. Not to mention he was so damn attentive to her needs when they were together. except in cruel space where null, its opposite, exists in enormous amounts. Franklin begins as he leans towards her before the sound of an air car revving up draws all sorts of attention. Then it disassembles itself and pulls itself back together into a massive robot woman with rabbit ears and over-the-top front and rear bumpers. The formation of the armor and where the seats ended up give her the look of wearing a bathing suit and a fair amount of jiggle where it would be found on a normal woman. Okay, seriously, even the transforming robots have giant tits. They're robots are brain scans of people. They get massive issues if they don't have body shapes similar to their natural ones. Mabby says in a dumbfounded voice as the equally shocked 20-foot-tall transforming aircar robot rabbit woman overlooks them all. Her somewhat digital voice begins. Have I been rescued by pirates? She asks in shock. Seriously, is everything outside of cruel space required to have massive tits? Are men even a thing out here? Brent demands, and all the attention goes to him barring the few that start snickering, such as Franklin.